I want to look at the Nigel Farage, Nick Robinson interview that was on the BBC last night. I think first impressions are Nick Robinson was extremely rude, treated Nigel Farage with a measure of contempt that you wouldn't see him treat Sir Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak with. However, it is what it is. But I think to be fair to Nigel Farage, he held his own and did very well on most points. But there were two things that I picked up on. One, he's been absolutely slaughtered in the mainstream media for. So normally, if you get slaughtered in the mainstream media and they're coming after you and they're doing a hit piece on you, it's because you're doing something right. The three occasions when I found myself in the mainstream media, four occasions. One was absolutely nothing to do with me anyway, but the three when it was something to do with me. One was when I said that I believed Islam was Antichrist. Another was when a book had been published and sold through a website that I was associated with that was less than favourable to Islamic doctrine, teaching, and the holy books of Islam. And the last time I found myself in the media was Care of Hope Not Hate, again printing things about me and publishing them and sending them to the mainstream media that actually weren't true. But that's another story. We'll leave that one there for now. Anyway, so when Farage is getting hit by a hit piece, it's obviously because he said something right. And what was he hit with? Well, he made comments about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And he quite rightly said that one of the reasons that Putin went to war in Ukraine was because he felt threatened by Western expansionism. And that's true. You can't dispute that. You just got to look at the borders. You know, we seem to forget at the end of the Cold War, half of East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, as it was then, Hungary, all the Baltic states, everything was under the orbit of Russia and the Soviet Union. And obviously, as things deteriorated and broke down, the evil empire, as it was called, broke down. It was an evil empire. The Russian Communist Party did some atrocious things, and that's to say the least. They could have been responsible for 70, 100 million deaths. Nobody really knows because nobody's really counted that much. You know, like Stalin said, one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. And that's very, very true. So when Farage made his comments about Russia and Ukraine last night, he was bang on. He was on the money. He was telling the truth. And the reaction shows that something very deep is going on among the elites in the West. And I'm going to, after the end of this video, I want to talk about another video that I've just watched. I don't normally plug other videos from other channels. I don't even know who this guy is, but the interview that he's done is absolutely fantastic. And I want to talk about that a little bit at the end. So stay tuned until the end. But when Farage was talking about Russia, Ukraine, he's quite rightly concerned about a war with Russia. And everybody knows that watching my channel, I live in Northern Ireland. I lived through the Troubles and I lived through peace. And the peace has been far from perfect, and I have my opinions on how it could have been sorted out better. However, the peace process in Northern Ireland did bring about peace, and people aren't being killed on a large scale like they were in the 70s, 80s and early 90s. That's gone away. Now, what Russia and Ukraine need is a peace process. But to have a peace process, you need grown-ups in the room. You don't need to be arming the Ukrainians to the teeth and at the same time allowing Russia to get armed to the teeth by Iran and China and wherever else they're getting weapons from. You don't need that adversarial situation. The Russia and Ukraine conflict could be sorted out quite easily if there was give and take on both sides. Because I don't believe that Putin wants a never-ending war to be his legacy. Is he a bad man? Yes, he is a very bad man. Should he have invaded Ukraine? Absolutely not. Is he responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths? Absolutely he is. Is he a tyrant? Yes. 100%. All those things are true. But listen, Ukraine are no angels either. Now, I've got friends that have served in Ukraine. I've got a friend that actually moved out there to help in a certain specialist field. And of course, they would profoundly disagree with my opinion and my point of view on this. That's fine. This is my opinion. They've got their opinion. They've been out there on the ground, but it doesn't mean they're right. What I'm looking at is a nuclear-armed Russia with 6,000 nuclear missiles that could be pointed at London, Belfast, Edinburgh, Birmingham, wherever he wants to send those 6,000 missiles. If he thinks he's going down, I don't think he'd hesitate. But that's not the reason that we need a peace process. Of course, it's one of the reasons, and nobody wants to have a global nuclear war that'll kill every human being alive. That would be a pretty bad end to the year. But the reality is, hundreds of thousands of young Ukrainians, hundreds of thousands of Russians have died because there hasn't been any attempt to have a negotiated settlement or a peace process. So Farage was absolutely right to bring that up. Absolutely right to say that it was provoked, and absolutely right to start the debate. Because believe you me, if everything that I'm hearing is true, the major players are going to be trying to drag us into a boots on the ground war with Russia. Now that's not going to end well, because their aim is to depose Putin. And like I say, I'm not a fan of Putin, before people start getting the wrong idea. But what I am a fan is of young British lads, probably a little bit older than my grandson, and if the war drags on, it would drag my grandson into the orbit of it. Young lads getting dragged into war and killed needlessly. That's what I'm against. And anybody with any sense is against that. Whether they be Russian lives, Ukrainian lives, war needs to stop. People talk about ceasefires in the Middle East. The biggest need for a ceasefire at the moment is between Ukraine and Russia. And we need to stop pouring petrol on the bonfire. That's my opinion on it. If you differ, that's fine. That's what the comments are there for. The next question does not leave Nigel Farage in a favourable light at all. He's played a bit of sleight of hand over the past few weeks, as far as I'm concerned, unless I've totally misunderstood things. And again, if you think I've misunderstood them, let me know in the comments. When he was questioned last night about immigration, when Farage became leader of Reform, when he started talking about immigration, he said there was going to be a total moratorium on immigration. That's what he said. As far as I understood, he got rid of the idea of net zero migration, which is Richard Tice's great groundbreaking idea that they'd call it net zero migration. Everyone would be foolish enough to think they meant no migrants coming in at all. So he stopped talking about that. And I thought the policy changed, that they were actually going to freeze migration totally. But that's not what they're doing. They might have changed the name from net zero migration and not call it net zero migration anymore. But the reality is the policy is still the same, because Farage said it last night on the show. Unless he's got this wrong, he said it's one in, one out. That still means 400,000 people coming to the UK every year. And again, like I said, we're getting rid of Jeremy, the accountant, Bill the builder, and Sid, the Harley Street doctor. And we're getting Abdul, Asif, and Mohammed. You know the story. I've said it about a million times. But it's got to be hammered home, because the reality is that is a very, very serious thing. Other things that weren't mentioned was the fact the Labour Party is probably going to bring us into the idea of a European army. And again, the video that I'm going to post in the comments and talk a little bit about in a minute goes into a lot of detail on that. And there are other issues. I mean, I suppose even the issue of the fact of, and he kind of brushed this off, but you can't really brush it off. There is still the situation that, excuse me, unless Reform do remarkably well, we are going to be ushering in a massive Labour majority with possibly a Liberal Democrat opposition. Now that's frightening. If the Lib Dems do well in this election, which they could do, hoovering up all those left-wing Tory seats, we could have a Lib Dem opposition opposing the Labour Party, which is probably going to drag the Labour Party even further to the progressive, lunatic, woke, mind virus left. So he wasn't really quizzed on that. My advice is still, the Tory party is now finished. There's absolutely no way they can recover from this. My advice is still vote Reform, and my advice, if you're Suella Braverman or any of the right-wing Tories, bail out of the Tory party now and join Reform. I'm not a big fan of Reform, you know that. I've said it time and time again. I don't think Reform's going to be the answer for this country. I think the people of this country are going to be the answer for this country. And I think the movement that we're starting with the pledge is the answer to this country. It's not found in one man and one political party, especially when he's deliberately excluding vast numbers of working class, white British people from his party by certain policies he's got. But again, I've talked about that before. I'm not going to hammer that home. But in this election, get behind Reform and vote for them if they're standing in your constituency. If you're in Northern Ireland, vote for a good right-wing unionist MP. If you're in Scotland, vote for a good right-wing unionist MP, if there is such a thing. And same in Wales. People have got to do it on constituency by constituency basis. And if you've got a good right-wing Tory MP, obviously, I mean, if you want to vote for them, vote for them. But I think especially in those northern areas where the red wall is and where there's no chance of Labour winning, you're far better going for Reform, especially if the Muslims are squeezing the vote on the left and Reform squeeze the vote on the right. It could actually make things very difficult for the Labour Party as well. So that's my advice on the election. Again, I'm not telling you how to vote. It's just a little bit of advice. And again, if you don't like what I say, stick it in the comments. This is how we build a community, by getting involved in a dialogue when we do videos. I'm going on a bit here now, so I'm going to bring this to a close. The video I watched was 2 hours long, and it was Andrew Bridgen being interviewed by a guy, I forget his name, from a podcast called GB Resistance. It is one of the best podcasts I have ever seen. It is absolutely stunning content. It will shock you. Bridgen goes into so much of what's happened, the corruption in government, the paedophile rings, the drug dealing in government. It's just absolutely mind-blowing stuff, mind-blowing content. He talks about the fact that he believes we're going to be, and this is another guy saying we're going to be at war with Russia in 6 to 8 months. So Galloway's saying it, Bridgen's saying it. There was someone else said it earlier on in the week. Alex Jones has intimated it. I know Alex Jones, everyone thinks it's a conspiracy nut, but quite often he gets things right. So I'm going to put a link in the description below to the Andrew Bridgen interview. I'm going to put the link to the pledge. The other thing I want you to do, if you would, is like and subscribe to the channel, because I believe when the Labour Party get in, they will censor us very heavily. They will try and ban us without a shadow of doubt. What we've got to understand is the Uni Party want to get total control of every part of our lives without any accountability whatsoever. And that's why we need to build this movement. We need to build this movement to the extent that it's got about 30 million people in it. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what we need to do to take back control of this country. And then we will have a fighting chance of winning and taking back control by sheer force of numbers. If we have 30 million people believing what we all believe, and what we believe is common sense, it's good, we're on the right side of history. If we manage to do that, we've got a good chance of taking back control of the country. So sign up to the pledge if you agree with everything on it. Also, please sign up to the UK Freedom Movement. I haven't even got near emailing anybody yet. All I want is to get the email addresses so that we've got that community. And once I get a bit of time, I'm going to create emails for the pledge and emails for the UK Freedom Movement, just welcome emails, and saying what both websites are about. And it means that we can keep in touch and we can keep contact, because I do believe that we'll be getting vaporized from social media. So please, as soon as I put this up, I'll try and get those links in there as well. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I'm going to put the links to everything that I want you to have a look at here. But again, we've got to be really realizing that we are getting shafted at the minute by the deep state, and they think they've won, and we've got to show them that they haven't. But we can only do it by massive numbers and staying organized and staying together and keeping disparate groups all over the place. So it's not just Tommy's group, it's not just what I'm doing, it's not just Carl Benjamin, it's not just Paul Thorpe. There's groups all over the place that can keep in touch with their people and bring everything together and bring a movement together. Guys, that's all I'm going to say tonight. Again, some amazing content. Let's say Farage, plus point on the Russia-Ukraine thing. I agree with him on that. He needs to be quizzed on the immigration thing by people on our side. We need to find out what his real policy is there, and watch the Andrew Bridgen interview. Like and subscribe, and if you can, send me your email address through the sign-up forms on those websites. See you all soon, guys.